My neighbor just had a baby, and her husband died shortly after. She always had watery, reddish eyes. She would sit at her doorstep holding her baby, complaining that her pipes were broken and that she was completely soaked. All the married men in the building would go into her apartment to help her for free. If any of their wives complained even a little, the men would scowl. She lost her husband at such a young age. What's wrong with helping her? Can't you show some compassion? With this exact trick, she managed to get 3 neighboring couples divorced. Last month, Ethan and I moved in. On our very first night, she knocked on our door. Wearing a loose robe, with red, teary eyes, she looked at my husband, looking absolutely pitiful. Mr. Vance, the baby won't stop crying, and my breast milk is severely clogged. It hurts so bad, can you please help me look at it? Ethan didn't say a word. He just turned to look at me. I stood up from the couch, picked up my professional lactation massage kit, and walked over with a sweet smile. A clogged duct? What a coincidence. I happen to be a certified lactation consultant, and I absolutely love cleaning out clogged trash. I slipped on my slippers, walked right past Ethan, and stood in front of Chloe Sterling. The motion sensor light in the hallway was on, clearly illuminating her silk slip nightgown. The fabric was incredibly thin, and the neckline dipped extremely low. As a draft blew through the hallway, she intentionally shivered, leaning weakly against the doorframe. Mrs. Vance, you're still awake too. She managed to squeeze out a weak smile, but her eyes kept drifting past my shoulder, staring straight at Ethan. Actually, I was just about to sleep, but you woke me up. I shook the lactation kit in my hand, making a crisp clinking sound. Let's go. Didn't you need help with a clogged duct? Lead the way. Chloe clearly didn't expect me to step in myself. She froze, awkwardly crossing her hands over her chest. Oh, I don't want to trouble you, Mrs. Vance. This kind of thing is pretty awkward, and it might make another woman uncomfortable. Mr. Vance is strong and quick, he can probably get it resolved in no time. You think it's appropriate for a man to massage your breasts? I pushed her apartment door wide open and walked straight inside without hesitation. It's much better for a woman like me to handle it. Chloe's apartment layout was identical to ours, but the interior style was completely different. The living room was filled with a strong, cloying perfume. A few pieces of lace lingerie were scattered on the couch, and 2 wine glasses sat on the coffee table. This didn't look like the home of a struggling single mother who just had a baby. It looked like a love motel ready to welcome guests at any moment. Where are we doing this? I turned and asked her. Chloe dragged her feet as she walked in, pointing toward the bedroom. Her voice was barely a whisper. It was hurting so badly just now, but I don't know what happened. It feels a bit better now. I walked up to her and zipped open my kit. My professional massage hands went to work immediately. I prepped the tools for a solid 30 seconds, letting the scent of the essential oil fill the air. Mrs. Vance, your hands are too heavy. My son is sleeping in the bedroom. Chloe covered her chest, took 2 steps back, a flash of annoyance in her eyes. Just being thorough, I said, putting my kit heavily back on the coffee table. I turned to look at her. Otherwise, if it gets clogged again in the middle of the night, you'll have to go knocking on someone else's door. Chloe's expression shifted. She took a deep breath, putting on that tragic, helpless face again. Mrs. Vance, is there some kind of misunderstanding between us? I really couldn't handle it myself. It's the middle of the night, and I don't have a man to rely on. If you don't have a man, you can hire a cleaning service, call the building manager, or call 911 if it's a real emergency. I cut her off, my eyes falling on the high-heeled, furry slippers on her feet. But Chloe, it's past 11 p.m. Knocking on a married neighbor's door in that outfit while holding a baby, that's not a very good habit. You. Before she could argue, I walked right past her toward the front door. Halfway there, I stopped, pointing at a pair of size 10 men's leather shoes sitting by her shoe rack. You bought the wrong size, I said without turning back. Ethan wears a size 9. If you've got your eyes on my husband, you should at least get his shoe size right. The moment I slammed her door shut, I could clearly hear the sharp sound of her high-heeled slippers violently stomping the floor inside. When I got back home, Ethan was sitting on the couch researching some documents. Seeing me walk in, he immediately handed me a glass of warm water. Handled, he asked. Just a home-wrecking bitch trying her luck, I said, taking a sip. Watch your step when you leave for work. Don't let her get close to you. Ethan sneered, sliding his tablet over to me. No need to wait for later. She's already starting her drama right now. I looked down. It was the neighborhood Snapchat group. Just a minute ago, Chloe had posted a message. The message in the Snapchat group was dripping with victimhood. Thank you to the new neighbor, Mrs. Vance, for coming over in the middle of the night to help me. Even though her massage was a bit too rough and my chest is still hurting, I'm really grateful. I think Mrs. Vance might have misunderstood me, though. She said some really hurtful things. It's just so hard raising a baby alone. If I wasn't desperate, I would never bother anyone. I'm so sorry for disturbing everyone's rest. Less than 30 seconds after she posted this, those lurking married men in the neighborhood jumped out like sharks smelling blood. Apartment 302, Marcus, Chloe, don't take it to heart. Young people these days are just hot-headed and lack empathy. Apartment 501, Brad, exactly. We're all neighbors. What's wrong with helping out? She's a single mother in pain. How could someone say such nasty things just because she knocked on a door? Apartment 604, Kevin, Chloe, next time you need help, just shout in the group. We'll come over. You don't need to take attitude from certain people. Looking at this row of righteous comments, I was practically laughing from anger. They were basically calling me cold-hearted to my face. Ethan grabbed his phone, his fingers flying across the screen, ready to fire back. But I pressed my hand over his. Don't waste your breath. Arguing in the group chat is exactly what she wants. It'll only make her look more like the victim. Just wait. Tomorrow, I'll make her dig her own grave. The next day was the weekend. I got up early, changed into my workout gear, and went downstairs to jog in the community garden. As I approached the gazebo, I saw Chloe sitting on a bench. Today, she had changed into a floral sundress, her long hair draped over her shoulders. She was gently dabbing her eyes with a tissue. A few older women and two middle-aged men were gathered around her, talking heatedly with indignant expressions. I slowed my pace and walked over. Morning, everyone, I greeted them with a smile, sitting down in an empty spot nearby. The air instantly went dead silent. The men who had been talking loudly a second ago immediately averted their gaze, pretending to look at the sky and the trees. Chloe shrunk back slightly, acting terrified. Morning, Mrs. Vance. Morning, Chloe. I wiped my sweat, keeping my tone casual. Is your chest feeling any better? I actually double-checked, and the technique I used is completely safe for nursing mothers. If it's still hurting, you might want to see a doctor. It could be mastitis. Chloe's expression stiffened. It's fine. It felt much better when I woke up this morning. Thank you for your concern, Mrs. Vance. Of course, I nodded, then turned to Marcus from apartment 302, who had been the loudest critic online. Marcus, I heard you're always looking out for Chloe. Since she was in so much pain last night, why didn't she knock on your door instead? Marcus's wife happened to be walking back from grocery shopping nearby. Hearing this, her face instantly darkened. Marcus stammered, I was asleep. Oh, I see, I said, pretending to realize something. By the way, last night, I noticed a pair of size 10 men's shoes in Chloe's entryway. Did you lend them to her, Marcus? Well, it makes sense. A single mother needs a pair of men's shoes by the door to keep intruders away. The moment I said this, the eyes of several women nearby turned incredibly sharp. Chloe panicked and stood up abruptly. Mrs. Vance. Watch your mouth. Those shoes belong to my late husband. I couldn't bear to throw them away, so I kept them as a keepsake. Is there a problem with that? Of course not. I pulled my phone from my pocket and pulled up a photo. I had taken it on my way into her apartment last night. I zoomed in on the photo and thrust it right in front of her face. But I heard your husband died in a car accident a year ago. This pair of Ferragamo men's loafers is from their brand new fall collection released just last month. And they happen to match the women's slippers you're wearing today. Buying both pairs together costs over $1,200. I watched her face turn completely pale as I said, word by word, wow, Chloe, you and your late husband must have a love that transcends death. He's been gone for a year, yet you're still buying matching couple shoes with him? There was a deathly silence. Everyone's eyes locked onto my phone screen, and then they all slowly turned to look at Chloe's feet. Chloe's face went completely white. She tried to hide her feet, but there was nowhere to tuck them. The identical buckles. Without a doubt, they were matching couple shoes. The men who had just been defending Chloe now looked incredibly uncomfortable. In particular, Brad from apartment 501 subconsciously tucked his feet backward. How convenient. Brad happened to wear a size 10. Brad's wife, Tiffany, who was notorious for her explosive temper, slammed her grocery bag onto the ground. She pointed right at Brad's nose and screamed, Brad. You took $1,200 out of our joint account last month and said it was for your mother's medicine. You spent it on shoes for this bitch? Honey, let me explain. I didn't buy those shoes. Brad sweated profusely, trying to defend himself. If you didn't buy them, why are you hiding your feet? Matching shoes? I didn't know you had such a romantic streak. Tiffany didn't give him a second to breathe. She lunged forward and slapped him across the face. The scene immediately descended into chaos. Chloe was completely caught off guard by this sudden turn of events. She tried to grab Tiffany's hand. Tiffany, please don't misunderstand, it really wasn't Brad. Get away from me. You husband-stealing whore. Tiffany shoved her hard. Chloe fell onto the grass, clutching her ankle. Her eyes welled up, and fat tears started rolling down her cheeks. Before, this pitiful act would have had men rushing to help her up. But now, under the murderous glares of their own wives, not a single man dared to move. I watched the drama unfold coldly, said nothing more, and turned around to continue my jog. For the next few days, the building was exceptionally quiet. Chloe didn't post a single thing in the group chat, and the male neighbors went completely silent. Every night, the sound of breaking plates echoed from Brad's apartment. Marcus's wife simply packed up, took the kids, and went to stay at her parents' house out of state, showing no signs of coming back anytime soon. But I knew Chloe wouldn't just take this lying down. A woman like her, who was used to wrapping men around her finger, couldn't stand losing her reputation. What she hated most was losing control of the narrative. She was waiting for an opportunity. An opportunity to completely flip the script and crush me. On Wednesday night, Ethan was in the study hosting a video conference, while I was in the living room organizing a PR proposal for a client. Suddenly, a frantic knocking came from the door, accompanied by the crying voice of Chloe's 5-year-old son, Leo. Ethan. Open the door. My mommy collapsed. Please help her. I walked to the door and looked through the peephole. In the hallway, Leo was wearing thin pajamas, pounding on our door. Meanwhile, Chloe was lying on the floor a few feet away near the elevator, her face pale and her eyes tightly closed. Under normal circumstances, seeing a 5-year-old child crying like this would make anyone open the door immediately. But I didn't budge. Because I clearly saw that Chloe, who was supposedly unconscious on the floor, was clutching her phone tightly in her right hand, and the screen was still lit. Moreover, the spot she chose to collapse was highly strategic. It perfectly avoided the blind spot of the hallway security camera. Most importantly, although Leo was crying, his eyes kept darting back to Chloe, as if waiting for a cue. She was putting on a tragic show, and she was using her own kid to do it. What's going on out there? Ethan heard the noise and came out of the study. I put my index finger to my lips, signaling him to be quiet, and then pointed at the peephole. Ethan took a look, his brows furrowing instantly. He pulled out his phone, preparing to call 911. Don't call yet, I stopped him. If you call 911 now, by the time the ambulance arrives, everyone in the building will think you ignored a dying neighbor at your doorstep. Then what do we do? Just let her lie out there? Ethan whispered. I smirked, looking at the hidden pinhole camera we had installed right above our peephole. Since she loves acting so much, let's give her a bigger stage. The crying and screaming outside grew louder, and Leo's voice was getting hoarse. The commotion finally drew out the other residents on our floor. Mrs. Gable, the busybody from across the hall, was the first to open her door. Seeing the scene, she gasped and rushed over to hug Leo. Oh my God. What a tragedy. Chloe, wake up. Mrs. Gable patted Chloe's face, then turned to slam her hand against our door, screaming, are the people inside dead? Can't you hear the child crying? Get out here and help. With Mrs. Gable screaming, neighbors from upstairs and downstairs started poking their heads out. Soon, a crowd gathered in front of our door. Most of them were nosy seniors, but a few of the male neighbors rushed over too. Looking at our tightly shut door, the crowd grew furious. What is wrong with the new family? They are so heartless. Exactly. It's one thing for her to be sharp-tongued normally, but this is a life-or-death situation, and they won't even open the door. Ethan. Be a man and get out here. Hiding inside makes you a coward. Someone in the crowd yelled, and immediately after, our door was kicked hard twice. Under the crowd shouting, Chloe finally woke up. She leaned weakly against Mrs. Gable, panting heavily, tears streaming down her face. Don't blame Ethan. It's just my own poor health. She spoke with a barely audible voice, but her eyes were fixed on our door. I just heard that Ethan's mother is a doctor, so I figured Ethan might know first aid. That's why I had Leo knock. Maybe they aren't home. This was textbook manipulation. She managed to explain why she only knocked on our door, gave us an excuse to save face, and painted herself as a sweet, understanding victim. As expected, the crowd's anger boiled over. Not home? Bullshit. I was just walking downstairs. Their apartment has the brightest lights in the whole building. Break the door down. I want to see how they can look us in the eye. Several agitated men began looking around for tools, looking ready to smash their way in. Ethan stood beside me, his face grim. He clenched his fists and said coldly, this is getting out of hand. If they break the door, we'll look guilty. Let me go out and set them straight. If you go out, you fall right into her trap. I held him back, my eyes cold. Chloe wanted us to open the door. The moment we stepped out, no matter what we said, the angry mob would see it as a heartless excuse. The banging on our door grew louder, and the metal frame groaned under the pressure. Leo's crying and the neighbors' cursing woven together like a suffocating net, tightening around our space. Let's call the police, Ethan said, his phone in hand. No need, I sneered as I looked at the footage on my phone, watching Chloe's pale but secretly smug face. I opened my Snapchat, found the chat with the property manager, Manager Carter, and sent him the video captured by our pinhole camera, along with several documents I had spent all of yesterday digging up. Let them smash it, I pulled Ethan to sit back down on the couch, calmly pouring 2 glasses of water. Just 3 more minutes. The real climax of this show is about to begin. The heavy oak door of our apartment vibrated violently as someone kicked it. Again. Outside, the hallway was a cacophony of raised voices, Mrs. Gable's shrill demands, and Leo's forced, dramatic sobbing. Ethan. Mrs. Vance. Open this door right now. Mrs. Gable's voice screeched. Through the wood. A poor mother is dying on your doorstep, and you two are hiding inside like rats. Do you have any humanity left? Inside, the atmosphere was entirely different. The soft glow of our living room lamp cast a warm, tranquil light. The air smelled of lavender and freshly brewed chamomile tea. Ethan sat calmly on the couch, his eyes fixed on the security monitor on his tablet, which displayed the live feed from our hidden pinhole camera. 2 minutes and 40 seconds, Ethan said, looking up with a cold, amused smile. She's really committed to the role. Look at her hand. She's still holding her phone, adjusting her grip so she doesn't drop it while pretending to be unconscious. I took a slow sip of my warm water, feeling the soothing heat spread down my throat. Let her play. The higher she climbs on her moral high ground, the harder her bones will shatter when she falls. On the screen, Chloe was lying on her side. Her silk robe had parted just enough to reveal a suggestive sliver of thigh, and her face was turned toward our door, displaying a perfect, tragic profile of pale distress. Every few seconds, when she thought the neighbors weren't looking directly at her, her eyes would slit open slightly to check if our door was opening. When it didn't, she would pinch Leo's arm under the guise of holding him close, prompting another loud, hoarse wail from the terrified 5-year-old. Mommy. Mommy, wake up. Please, someone help my mommy. Leo cried, his voice raspy. Don't worry, sweetheart, Marcus from apartment 302 said, his voice dripping with righteous indignation as he stepped into the camera's frame. He had a heavy metal wrench in his hand, likely taken from his toolbox. Some people in this building are monsters, but we won't let anything happen to your mother. Step back, Leo. I'm breaking this door down. Marcus, don't. Chloe suddenly murmured, her voice weak but perfectly clear. She fluttered her eyelids open, raising a trembling hand to touch Marcus's arm. Please, don't cause trouble for Mr. and Mrs. Vance. It's my fault, my body is just too weak. I shouldn't have disturbed them. If Mrs. Vance gets angry again, I don't know what I'll do. Chloe, you're too kind. That woman insulted you in front of everyone, and now she's letting you die out here. Mrs. Gable yelled, pointing a finger at our door. We need to teach these newcomers a lesson. Just as Marcus raised the wrench, aiming it directly at our door handle, the elevator at the end of the hall dinged. The heavy sliding doors parted, and out stepped Manager Carter, accompanied by 3 uniformed police officers and 2 paramedics carrying a folded gurney. The sudden arrival of authority figures froze the crowd. Marcus slowly lowered the wrench, his face turning a shade of guilty red as he tried to hide the tool behind his back. Mrs. Gable blinked in confusion, her mouth still half open from her last shout. Inside, I set my glass down on the coffee table. 3 minutes, I said, standing up and smoothing down my silk loungewear. Right on time. Let's go welcome our guests, Ethan. Ethan stood up beside me, his tall frame radiating a quiet, imposing confidence. He reached out and unlocked the door, pulling it open just as Manager Carter and the police officers reached the crowd. The sudden opening of the door caused Mrs. Gable to stumble back a step. The angry words died in her throat as she looked at Ethan, who stood there looking perfectly composed, a professional, icy aura surrounding him. Ah, Mr. and Mrs. Vance. Manager Carter gasped, wiping sweat from his forehead. Thank goodness you're all right. I received your message and the files. I brought the authorities immediately. What is the meaning of this? One of the police officers, a stern-looking man named Officer Davis, asked, looking around the crowded hallway. We received a report of a medical emergency and a potential home invasion/property damage in progress. Mrs. Gable immediately found her voice, pointing an accusing finger at me. Officer. You came at the right time. These people, the Vances, are monsters. This poor single mother, Chloe, collapsed right in front of their door, and they refused to help her or even open the door. They let a 5-year-old child beg and cry for 20 minutes. Is that so? Officer Davis looked at me, his notebook in hand. I smiled, stepping forward with an air of polite concern. Officer, I think there has been a massive misunderstanding. We didn't open the door immediately because we were waiting for the professional emergency services we called to arrive. After all, we are just ordinary citizens. If someone is truly unconscious, moving them or attempting amateur first aid without proper training can lead to severe liability and physical harm. I turned my gaze to Chloe, who was still sitting on the floor, leaning against Mrs. Gable, looking like a delicate flower withered by the storm. And besides, I continued, my voice carrying clearly down the hallway, we wanted to make sure we had documented everything clearly so the medical Professionals would know exactly what happened. Paramedics, please, check on her. She's been unconscious and collapsing for a while now. The two paramedics immediately stepped forward, kneeling beside Chloe. Chloe's eyes flickered with a brief flash of panic. She tried to pull away. Slightly, but the paramedic, a no-nonsense woman with short hair, firmly took her wrist to check her pulse. Ma'am, please lie still, the paramedic said, pulling out a small flashlight to check Chloe's pupils, then wrapping a blood pressure cuff around her arm. The hallway fell into an expectant, tense silence. Mrs. Gable and Marcus watched eagerly, expecting the paramedics to confirm that Chloe was on the brink of death, which would justify their anger. After a quick 1-minute examination, the female paramedic stood up, her expression utterly flat. She looked at Officer Davis and shook her head. Vitals are perfectly normal. Blood pressure is 112/74. Pulse is 72, strong and steady. Pupil reaction is normal. There are no signs of trauma, dehydration, or neurological deficit. The paramedic looked down at Chloe, her tone tinged with professional annoyance. Ma'am, you are completely healthy. If you are feeling weak, I suggest you drink some water and get some rest. But there is absolutely no medical reason for you to be lying on the floor pretending to be unconscious. A collective gasp rippled through the neighbors. What? Mrs. Gable blinked, looking down at Chloe. But she was so pale. She couldn't even stand. Perhaps she was just tired, I said smoothly, pulling out my phone. Or perhaps she was simply setting up a stage. Manager Carter, did you share the video I sent you with the building's public group chat? Manager Carter nodded quickly, pulling out his own phone. Yes, Mrs. Vance. As the property manager, I felt it was my duty to ensure all residents are aware of the truth behind this emergency to prevent any further panic or property damage. A series of quiet dings echoed through the hallway as the neighbors' phones vibrated in unison. Mrs. Gable, Marcus, and several others quickly pulled out their phones. On the screen was the crystal clear, high-definition footage from our pinhole camera, complete with high-quality audio. The video started about 5 minutes before the knocking began. It showed Chloe, fully dressed in her robe, walking down the hallway with Leo. She stopped right outside our door, completely healthy, her movements quick and deliberate. She turned to Leo and whispered sharply, "Remember what I told you. Cry as loud as you can. Knock on the door and call for Ethan. If they don't open, keep crying and say I'm dying. Do you hear me?" Leo, looking frightened, nodded. Chloe then took a deep breath, checked her reflection in her phone screen to ensure her hair looked appropriately disheveled, and then laid down on the floor. She adjusted her robe to expose her shoulder, clutched her phone in her hand, closed her eyes, and gave Leo a sharp nod. Only then did Leo begin to knock and cry. The audio was incredibly clear. Every single calculated instruction, every fake sigh, and the moment she pinched Leo's arm to make him cry louder when the neighbors gathered, it was all there, laid bare in high-definition glory. The silence in the hallway was so profound you could hear a pin drop. Marcus's face turned from righteous red to a sickly, pale green. He slowly let the wrench slide out of his hand, letting it clatter loudly against the tile floor. He didn't dare look at anyone, his eyes glued to his phone screen in sheer embarrassment. Mrs. Gable looked like she had swallowed a fly. She slowly drew her hands back from Chloe, as if the woman was covered in plague. "You," Mrs. Gable stammered, looking at Chloe with a mixture of disgust and betrayal. "You were acting? You used your own child to put on a show? We were out here ready to break down doors for you." Chloe's face went from pale to completely bloodless. The pathetic, teary-eyed mask she had worn so successfully for months shattered instantly. She scrambled to her feet, no longer looking weak or helpless, her eyes darting around the hallway like a cornered animal. "No, it's not like that," Chloe cried, her voice rising in panic. "The video is edited. It's a fake. Mrs. Vance is trying to frame me. She hates me because I'm a single mother. She's jealous of me." "Jealous of you?" I couldn't help but laugh out loud, a clear, ringing sound that echoed through the quiet hallway. "Chloe, I am a certified senior lactation consultant and a senior partner at a top-tier public relations firm. My husband is a senior software architect. We bought our apartment with cash. You, on the other hand, have been living on charity from the married men in this building while failing to pay your HOA fees for the past 3 months." I stepped forward, my eyes locking onto hers, cold and unwavering. "But that's not all, is it? Since the police are here, I think it's time we discuss the real reason you've been so desperate to get close to the men in this building, and why you're so terrified of me. Chloe's breath hitched. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just a poor widow. My husband died a year ago in a car accident. Your husband, Richard Sterling, did indeed die a year ago, I said, pulling a thick manila folder from the bag I had placed by our entryway. I handed a copy of the documents inside to Officer Davis. But he didn't die in a simple car accident. He died while fleeing the police. After his multi-million-dollar Ponzi scheme collapsed. And you, Chloe, were not just his grieving widow. You were his primary accomplice. A collective gasp echoed through the hallway. Mrs. Gable's eyes went wide, and she took another 3 steps back, completely distancing herself from Chloe. Officer, if you look at the court records and bank statements in that file, I continued, pointing to the documents in Officer Davis's hands, you'll see that while the federal courts froze all of Chloe Sterling's known bank accounts to pay back her husband's victims, she managed to hide a significant amount of cash in offshore accounts and dummy accounts registered under her son Leo's name. Chloe's body began to tremble violently. You're lying. That's confidential. You had no right to dig into my past. In my line of work, uncovering the truth is what I do best, I said smoothly. But here is the most interesting part, officer. Because her main accounts are flagged by the federal government, she cannot make large, sudden deposits or buy luxury goods in her own name without triggering an audit. So, she developed a new scheme. I turned to look at the neighbors, who were now listening with rapt attention, hanging on to my every word. She moves into middle-class neighborhoods, targets married men, and plays the victim. She uses her poverty and struggles to elicit sympathy. The men, blinded by her delicate act, give her cash under the guise of loans or charity to help her with her baby. Some even buy her expensive luxury items, like the Ferragamo shoes Brad bought her, which she then immediately resells on high-end luxury consignment apps for clean, untraceable cash. I looked directly at Marcus, whose face was now completely white. Marcus, last month, you told your wife that your car needed a complete engine overhaul, and you withdrew $5,000 from your savings. But according to the mechanic's receipt I found, your car only needed a $50 oil change. Where did the other $4,950 go? Did you perhaps lend it to Chloe because her baby was sick? Marcus opened his mouth, but no sound came out. He looked like he was about to vomit. And you, Kevin from apartment 604, I said, turning my gaze to the man standing at the back of the crowd, who was trying to slip away quietly. Your wife has been working double shifts at the hospital to save up for your daughter's college tuition. But last week, you transferred $3,000 to an account registered under the name Leo Sterling for rent assistance. Do you really think your wife won't find out when she does the taxes next month? Kevin froze, his hand on the elevator button, his face filled with sheer terror. This woman is not a helpless widow, I said, my voice dropping to a cold, hard register. She is a professional financial parasite. She seduces, manipulates, and drains the savings of weak-willed men, causing divorces and destroying families, all while keeping herself legally insulated by claiming the money was gifts or loans given out of neighborly compassion. Chloe's eyes turned red, not from tears this time, but from pure, unadulterated rage. The watery, weak look was completely gone, replaced by a venomous, hateful glare. You bitch, she screamed, lunging toward me with her nails clawing at the air. You've ruined everything. I'll kill you. Before she could even get close to me, Ethan stepped in front of me like an immovable wall. At the same time, the 2 police officers reacted instantly, grabbing Chloe's arms and pinning them behind her back. Ma'am, calm down. Officer Davis barked, snapping a pair of handcuffs onto her wrists. You are under arrest for public disturbance, potential child endangerment, and we will be holding you while we verify these financial fraud allegations with the federal authorities. Let me go. She's lying. She set me up. Chloe shrieked, thrashing against the officer's grip. Her hair was messy, her robe was disheveled, and her face was distorted with ugly, savage fury. She looked nothing like the elegant, pitiful beauty she had pretended to be. She looked like a madwoman. Mommy. Mommy. Leo cried, truly terrified now, clinging to Mrs. Gable's leg. Officer Davis looked at Mrs. Gable. Ma'am, please take the child inside his apartment for now. We will have Child Protective Services come to assess the situation. Mrs. Gable, completely shaken and horrified by the realization of how she had been manipulated, quickly nodded. She picked up Leo and hurried away, not throwing a single glance back at Chloe. The paramedics packed up their gear, looking thoroughly annoyed at having their time wasted by a fake emergency, and left. The police officers dragged a screaming, cursing Chloe down the hallway and into the elevator. Her venomous curses echoed through the shaft even after the doors closed. The hallway fell silent once more. Marcus and Kevin stood there, looking like ghosts. They looked at the closed elevator doors, then at the thick file in the police officer's hand, and finally at me. Mrs. Vance, please, Marcus stammered, his voice trembling. My wife, she doesn't know about the $5,000. If she finds out, she'll leave me. Please, can you not tell her? Your wife already knows, Marcus, I said, giving him a cold, pitying look. I sent the transaction records to her an hour ago. She's currently at her lawyer's office drafting the divorce papers. I suggest you go home and start packing. Marcus's knees buckled, and he collapsed against the wall, sliding down to the floor, his head in his hands. I turned to Kevin, who was trembling. And Kevin, your wife will be home from her shift in 10 minutes. I suggest you prepare an explanation for where your daughter's college fund went. Without waiting for their replies, Ethan and I stepped back into our apartment. Ethan closed the door, locking it with a firm, satisfying click. Well, Ethan said, a soft, admiring smile gracing his lips as he wrapped his arms around my waist from behind. That was a magnificent performance, Mrs. Vance. It was just a basic PR crisis cleanup, I said, leaning back against his chest. Finally letting out a long breath. But it's not over yet. A woman like Chloe doesn't just disappear. She still has resources, and she still has her pride. We need to be ready for her next move. For the next 2 weeks, the building experienced an unprecedented era of peace. Though it was a tense, fragile kind of quiet. Chloe was released on bail after 3 days, thanks to a high-priced defense attorney who managed to argue that the loans she received from the neighbors were voluntary gifts and could not be classified as fraud under state law. However, the federal investigation into her hidden assets was still ongoing, keeping her on a tight leash. When she returned to the building, she was a pariah. No one spoke to her. The married men who had once tripped over themselves to carry her groceries or fix her pipes now ran in the opposite direction whenever they saw her. Brad and Tiffany's apartment was constantly filled with the sound of packing boxes and shouting. Tiffany had officially filed for divorce and was suing Brad for every penny he had, using the evidence of the Ferragamo shoes and other hidden charity payments I had provided. Marcus was already gone, living in a cheap motel while his wife's lawyers stripped him of his assets. But Chloe didn't move out. She couldn't. Her assets were frozen, and she was stuck in her apartment, waiting for her day in court. Every time I saw her in the lobby, she wore large sunglasses and a scarf, but the hatred radiating from her was palpable. On a rainy Tuesday afternoon, I was working from home in our living room when my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I picked it up. Hello, this is Rachel Vance. Mrs. Vance, a low, gravelly male voice spoke from the other end. We haven't met, but I believe we have a mutual friend. Chloe Sterling. My fingers froze over my keyboard. Who is this? My name is Julian Vance, the voice said. I frowned. That's a coincidence. My husband's last name is Vance. It's no coincidence, Rachel, the man chuckled, a cold, mocking sound. Ethan is my younger half-brother. Though, I suppose he never mentioned me. Our father left his entire estate to Ethan and his mother, leaving me and my mother with nothing. I've been looking for a way to get my fair share for a very long time. A chill ran down my spine. What does this have to do with Chloe? Chloe is an old friend of mine, Julian said. In fact, I was the one who suggested she move into your building. I knew Ethan lived there, and I knew how weak he is when it comes to pathetic, weeping women. I wanted Chloe to get close to him, to find some dirt, some leverage we could use to squeeze a few million out of him. My mind raced, connecting the dots. Chloe's move to our building wasn't random. Her target wasn't just any rich married man, her ultimate target had always been Ethan. The other men in the building were just practice runs, a way to sustain her lifestyle while she waited for the perfect moment to ensnare my husband. But you, Julian continued, his voice growing dark and venomous. You ruined everything. You exposed her, you ruined her reputation, and you brought the federal authorities down on her head. Now, she's facing prison time, and I'm facing a major financial loss. So, what do you want? I asked, keeping my voice steady and professional, though my heart was beating fast. I want $5 million, Julian said. In cash, transferred to an offshore account I will specify. If you pay, Chloe and I will disappear from your lives. Forever. If you don't. He paused, a cruel laugh escaping his lips. If you don't, Chloe is going to play her final card. And believe me, Rachel. It's a card that will destroy your husband's career, your reputation, and send one of you to prison. You have 24 hours to decide. The line went dead. I stared at my phone, my mind working at a furious pace. I didn't immediately call Ethan. Instead, I called my contact at the PR firm's private security division, a retired detective named Marcus Vance, no relation to the neighbor, a funny coincidence. Marcus, I said when he answered. I need you to trace a number. And I need a full background check on a man named Julian Vance, supposedly Ethan's half-brother. I want everything, his criminal record, his financial debts, his relationship with Chloe Sterling. I need it in 12 hours. You got it, boss, Marcus replied. By the time Ethan came home from work, I had a complete file on my laptop. I didn't hide anything from him. As he sat down, I handed him a cup of coffee and opened the screen. Ethan, did you know you had a half-brother named Julian? I asked gently. Ethan's hand tightened around his coffee mug. His face darkened, a rare look of pure disgust crossing his features. Julian, Ethan spat the name out. He's a parasite. My father had a brief affair with his mother before he met mine. When my father died, Julian tried to sue for the estate, claiming he was the rightful heir. The courts threw his case out because his mother had signed an ironclad relinquishment agreement in exchange for a massive payout years ago. He's a degenerate gambler and a scam artist. I haven't heard from him in 5 years. Why? Did he contact you? Yes, I said, and played the recording of the phone call I had made. As Ethan listened to Julian's threats, his jaw clenched so tightly the muscles in his face trembled. That bastard, Ethan whispered. He's using Chloe to extort us. What final card is he talking about? I think I know, I said, opening the folder Marcus had sent me. According to the background check, Julian is deeply in debt to some very dangerous loan sharks. He owes over $3 million. If he doesn't pay by the end of the month, he's a dead man. Chloe is also desperate, her federal trial is coming up, and she needs a massive amount of cash to flee the country. They are cornered beasts. I pointed to a specific document on the screen. And this is their card. Chloe has been keeping a digital ledger, a diary of sorts, of all her interactions with the men in this building. But she has altered it. She has created a fake version where she claims that Ethan was the one who initiated contact with her, that he forced himself on her, and that he has been financially blackmailing her using her late husband's past. She has doctored text messages, photoshopped images, and even has a fake medical report claiming she was assaulted. Ethan gasped, his eyes wide with horror. Assaulted? By me? That's insane. I've never even been in her apartment alone. It doesn't matter if it's true, Ethan, I said, my PR instinct kicking in. In the court of public opinion, a wealthy, successful man accused of assaulting a poor, grieving widow with a baby is a death sentence. Even if you are eventually proven innocent, your reputation will be ruined, your company will fire you, and our lives will be destroyed. It's a classic smear campaign. Ethan looked at me, his eyes filled with a mixture of anger and worry. What do we do, Rachel? Do we pay them? Pay them? I laughed, a cold, sharp sound. Absolutely not. In my industry, we have a saying, never negotiate with terrorists, especially stupid ones. I closed my laptop and stood up, walking over to him and placing my hands on his shoulders. They think they have us cornered. But they forgot one thing. I don't just defend reputations, Ethan. I destroy the people who try to ruin them. We're going to let them play their card. In fact, we're going to help them play it. The next morning, the storm outside had cleared, replaced by a gray, overcast sky. I sent a text message to the unknown number. 5 million is too much. I can get you 2 million in cash by tonight. Meet me at the cafe down the street from our building at 8 p.m. Come alone. A few minutes later, the reply came, 3 million. Cash or untraceable crypto. And I won't be alone. Chloe is coming with me to sign a settlement, so you know. She won't go to the press. 8 p.m. Don't play games, Rachel. Deal, I replied. As soon as the message was sent, I turned to Ethan. Are the hidden cameras and audio recorders in our apartment fully operational? Yes, Ethan said, checking his phone. The living room, the entryway, even the hallway outside our door. The backup servers are secure, and the feed is being recorded in real time to 3 separate cloud locations. Good. Because they aren't going to meet me at the cafe. I smiled, a cold, calculating look in my eyes. Julian is too greedy and too paranoid to meet in a public space with $3 million on the line. He's going to try to break into our apartment while he thinks I'm at the cafe, or he's going to send Chloe here to plant the evidence of the assault to make their threat more believable. He wants to have double leverage. My prediction was verified an hour later when Marcus, my security contact, called. Rachel, we've been monitoring Julian's phone location. He just purchased a set of lockpicking tools and a dummy keycard for your building service elevator. He's not planning on meeting you at the cafe. He's planning to break into your place tonight at 8 p.m. while you're supposedly waiting for him. Excellent, I said. And where is Chloe? She's currently in her apartment, but she's been packing her bags. She has a taxi booked for 9 p.m. to the airport. She has a fake passport under the name Sarah Jenkins. Perfect. Marcus, call the police and the federal agents handling her fraud case. Tell them that Chloe Sterling is preparing to flee the country tonight at 9 p.m. with stolen assets. Give them her flight details and her fake name. But tell them to wait until 8:15 p.m. to make the arrest. You got it, Rachel. What about Julian? Leave Julian to me and Ethan. At 7:45 p.m., I left the apartment, making sure to dress in a conspicuous bright red coat. I walked down the street toward the cafe, ensuring that anyone watching the building would see me leave. Ethan, however, remained inside. He was hidden in the study, which we had locked from the outside with a smart lock to make it look empty. At exactly 8 p.m., the hallway camera showed a figure approaching our door. It was Julian Vance. He was a tall, disheveled man with a desperate, wild look in his eyes. He wore a dark hoodie and gloves. Beside him was Chloe, who looked equally anxious, clutching a large designer handbag. Julian pulled out the lockpicking tools and a master keycard. It took him less than 30 seconds to bypass our smart lock. He had clearly practiced. The door clicked open, and the two of them slipped inside, closing the door quietly behind them. Quick, Julian whispered, his voice carrying clearly over our hidden microphones. Find the safe. Ethan's father had a collection of rare gold coins and bearer bonds. He must have them in his study. What about the assault evidence? Chloe asked, her voice trembling. We need to plant the bloody shirt and the doctor's report in his closet. If the police find it here, he's finished. Just throw it in the master bedroom closet. Julian snapped. Hurry up. We don't have much time. Chloe ran toward our bedroom, pulling a plastic bag containing a stained shirt and a folder of documents from her handbag. Just as she opened the closet door, the lights in the apartment suddenly turned on, blinding them both. Looking for this? Ethan stepped out of the study, holding his phone, which was live streaming the entire scene directly to the police and our legal team. Julian and Chloe froze, their faces twisted in sheer shock. Ethan. Chloe gasped, dropping the plastic bag onto the floor. Julian's shock quickly turned to desperate anger. He pulled a heavy pocket knife from his hoodie, the blade clicking open with a terrifying sound. You think you're smart, little brother? Julian sneered, stepping toward Ethan. You're alone. I'll cut you down right now, take what I want, and by the time your wife gets back, we'll be gone. He's not alone. I stepped out from the guest room, holding a high-powered taser in my hand, my bright red coat draped over my arm. I had slipped back into the building through the service entrance while Julian was busy lockpicking. Julian turned, his eyes widening as he saw me. You were at the cafe. A simple decoy, I said, my tone incredibly casual. Julian, did you really think a professional PR crisis manager would go to a shady meeting without a backup plan? We've been recording everything. Your lockpicking, your illegal entry, your search for stolen goods, and Chloe's attempt to plant fabricated evidence of assault. I pointed to the camera hidden in the smoke detector above. The feed is currently being watched by Officer Davis and 2 detectives from the Financial Crimes Division. They are already in the lobby. Julian's face went pale. He looked at the knife in his hand, then at Ethan's calm demeanor, and finally at my steady hand holding the taser. No, this can't be happening, Chloe whimpered, collapsing onto our living room rug, clutching her head. I was so close. I just needed the money. You were never close, Chloe, I said, walking over to her and looking down with a cold, piercing gaze. You are a parasite, and like all parasites, you eventually kill the host or get washed away. Today, you get washed away. At that exact moment, the front door was kicked open. Police. Drop the weapon. Hands in the air. Officer Davis and 3 other officers rushed into the room, their guns drawn and flashlights blinding Julian. Julian dropped the knife instantly, falling to his knees with his hands behind his head, sobbing in desperation. It was her idea. She planned the whole thing. She told me Ethan was rich and Easy to blackmail. Julian screamed, pointing at Chloe. Shut up, you coward. Chloe shrieked, lunging at Julian, scratching at his face. Before the officers grabbed her and dragged her away. Chloe Sterling, you are under arrest for breaking and entering, attempted extortion, tampering with evidence, and violating the terms of your bail. Officer Davis said, his voice firm as he handcuffed her once again. As they dragged her out of our apartment, she stopped, looking back at me with a face full of pure, venomous hatred. You think you won, Rachel? You think you're safe? I'll be back. I'll ruin you. You won't be back, Chloe, I said, stepping forward, a sweet, satisfied smile on my face. Because while you were planning this little break-in, the federal agents raided your apartment. They found your hidden ledger, the real one, not the photoshopped version. They found the offshore accounts under Leo's name, and they found the fake passport you bought. I leaned in, my voice dropping to a whisper that only she could hear. You're going to a maximum security federal prison for grand fraud, money laundering, and child endangerment. You'll be lucky if you see the sun again in 20 years. And as for Leo, he's already been placed with a wonderful, loving foster family who will actually take care of him, instead of using him as a prop to seduce married men. Chloe's eyes went completely wide. The last ounce of fight left her body. She looked like a hollow, empty shell as the officers dragged her into the hallway. The next morning, the sun broke through the clouds, casting a bright, beautiful light over our neighborhood. The building was quieter than ever, but it was a peaceful, clean kind of quiet. The Snapchat group chat was silent. No one posted any dramatic messages, no one complained about broken pipes, and no one asked for charity. Marcus's apartment was completely empty, a for sale sign posted on the door. Brad and Tiffany's apartment was also silent. Brad had been kicked out, and Tiffany was currently preparing the apartment for sale as part of their divorce settlement. At 10 a.m., Ethan and I walked down to the lobby to grab our mail. As we walked past the gazebo in the community garden, we saw Mrs. Gable sitting on the bench. When she saw us, she flinched, looking incredibly uncomfortable. She stood up, her face turning a deep shade of red, and slowly walked over to us. Mr. and Mrs. Vance. She stammered, her hands nervously clutching her purse. I wanted to apologize. I was so wrong about you. I was blinded by Chloe's act, and I said some really horrible things to you. I am so sorry. I looked at her, my expression calm and polite. It's fine, Mrs. Gable, I said smoothly. In my line of work, I see people get manipulated by professional liars all the time. But I hope this serves as a lesson. I stepped closer, my voice carrying a quiet but firm weight. Compassion is a beautiful thing. But when your compassion is used to attack innocent neighbors while defending a predator, it's not compassion anymore. It's just foolishness. Mrs. Gable nodded quickly, her eyes filled with shame. Yes, of course. I've learned my lesson. Truly. Good, I smiled, taking Ethan's hand. Have a wonderful day, Mrs. Gable. We walked back to our apartment, our hands clasped tightly together. Inside, the sun was streaming through our large living room windows, illuminating the beautiful, clean space we had built together. Ethan pulled me close, resting his forehead against mine, his eyes filled with a deep, peaceful warmth. It's finally over, he whispered. Yes, I said, a soft, content smile spreading across my face. It's over. I looked out the window, watching the peaceful community below. The trash had been thoroughly cleaned out. Our home was safe, our reputation was untouched, and our future was brighter than ever. As a professional, I always ensure my clients get the perfect resolution. And this time, the resolution was absolutely flawless.